Let me know. Hey y'all, Nick Pomeroy here with PR Equipment. Today I'm up in our Canton location, and I wanted to do, we recently traded for this Kubota. It's a Z231 with a 42-inch deck, which is a really good comparison to our Spartan RZC42. And this one's a 2022 model with like 16 hours. He didn't really use it much, brought it in, traded it in, and so I thought it would be a good kind of side-by-side comparison to do. And I like to nerd out on these mowers, so it's kind of cool to see the differences and similarities and whatnot. But also, I always get the most comments and reactions to my comparison videos. I know you Kubota guys are going to be out there, you know, hanging on every word, but I try to be as fair as possible. So before we get started, price. We did call a Kubota dealer. We actually wanted to get what this mower sells for today, and I believe it's $4,800 or something like that. So right now, this mower is a little bit more expensive than the Spartan. The Spartan's got a rebate on it, which is bringing it down pretty good. If that rebate was gone, though, they're pretty close to equal in price. So I think this is a really good comparison. This isn't like, you know, they're not staggered at all. It's a pretty close comparison in terms of price. So now let's just talk about what you get for that money. So the first thing, I always like, you know, engine, transmission, and deck is probably the big three things when you're looking at a new mower. So first off, both of these mowers actually run the Kawasaki FR651V. Great motor. It's identical on both mowers. I think it's 21.5 horsepower. But there's no winner here. Like I say, they both run the same engine, and it's a very good engine. Now, when we get to the transmission, there's a little bit of a difference. So the Kubota is going to run the Hydra gear transmission. I don't remember the exact model. It's obviously the lower grade one, but it's a residential mower. But you're only going to get 6.5 miles per hour of speed out of it, which probably is okay for a lot of applications. But just know that with the Spartan, you do get 8 miles an hour, and we're running the Tough Torque transmissions, which kind of a side note, Tough Torque is actually owned by Yanmar, which is one of our big tractor suppliers that we sell a lot of their Yanmar tractors. So it's kind of cool that Yanmar is also the manufacturer of the transmissions for the Spartan. But that being said, so we got a little, I would say, an advantage when it comes to transmission. We've got a little bit more speed. I also think when it comes to controlling the transmissions, we're a little smoother than the Kubota, but it's pretty negligible. The next thing I want to talk about is the deck, right? So that's a big thing when you're looking at a mower, and that's the big thing that sets it apart when versus, you know, going to Walmart or Tractor Supply and picking up the old, you know, $2,000 riding mower. The deck construction is a big part of why, like say, you're getting such a quality mower, and like say, it's built to last. Now, I will say right off the bat, they're both pretty solid decks. I mean, they're both, I can't say one is all that much better than the other, but there are some key differences. Now, I'm going to give Kubota their win first. They have a 4.5-inch deep deck where ours is 4-inch deep. So they do have a little bit more, you know, a little bit more volume in their deck. Moving on from there, though, there's 3 key differences, or actually maybe 4, that I wanted to talk about that the Spartan really shines on. So one, the flap, Kubota just uses the cheap kind of plastic flap, whereas the Spartan's going to use the much heavier rubber flap. It's just a little heavier duty, you know, item. The next thing is the scalping wheels. So with our scalping wheels on the Spartan, we're going to support these scalping wheels on both sides, and that really helps. So sooner or later you're going to hit something with these, and if it's only supported on one side, it's more likely to bend that bracket. When they're supported on both sides, you just don't see that. And then also deck thickness. So I'm not knocking Kubota because it's actually a pretty well built deck, but it is a 10 gauge deck versus a 7 gauge deck on the Spartan. 7 gauge is about 150% thicker than the 10 gauge that the Kubota uses. Moving on from there, the actual linkage that holds the deck on, we're a little heavier on the Spartan. They're both turn knob style deck setting systems, so that's probably worth noting that they're pretty similar in that respect, that you push the pedal, raise the deck, and then, you know, set your settings. You do get a couple more settings with the Spartan. You can go a little bit shorter, and you can go just a little bit taller because we just have a couple more settings on the deck knobs. But also, well, so the deck linkage, the Kubota is supported with the 4 points, and that's it. So it's kind of a trailing link design here, but the Kubota is supported with the 4 points of connection. On the Spartan, you're actually going to have 6. So you've got this one and this one, kind of like the Kubota does. But we've also got this, I call it the H bar back here, that actually kind of supports the back of the deck, right? So it's kind of, you know, keeping it from swinging backwards, and it's going to move up and down as well. But like I said, it kind of reinforces that deck, gives it a little rigidity. So moving on, and I didn't take the covers off and look at spindles and things like that. I just didn't go quite that far. But a couple things it's probably worth noting when you do go with the Spartan, you get a little bit more access. So the floorboard on the Kubota does not move, right? It's part of the frame, so it is what it is. So with all Spartans, they're going to have that removable footboard, which allows you to get in there and clean things. If you need to change any belts, if you need to make any adjustments, we actually have some grease zerks that we need to pay attention to for the tensioners. So it's really, really easy to get in and access all those things that you need to. So I'm a big fan of being able to work on stuff. It's just so much nicer to be able to get to things. So that's one thing the Kubota doesn't do well. In fact, while we're on the topic of access, we'll look under the seat of the Kubota, and we're going to look under the seat of the Spartan. So under the seat of the Kubota is the fuel tank and the battery. You can't really get to anything else. It is what it is. You can't get down in there and work on anything or access anything. However, on the Spartan, the fuel tank is actually on the side, built into the side, and we actually get a little bit more capacity too. We've got 5 gallons versus their 3.6 gallons, and even a little bit better fuel gauge. All that's built on the side of the mower, allowing you to still have all this access here. If you need to work on the battery, if you need to do anything down here, working on the belts, adjusting brakes, anything like that, you've just got so much access to get down there and clean and whatever you got to do. So I'm a big fan of that. So moving on, the frame is also something that one of the first things, couple things, I guess, when you first walk up to these mowers, you really notice the differences. The frame on the Spartan, it's just wider, it's a bigger mower, and that's part of the GT track design. And so we want to be the best at holding the side hill, because zero turns are traditionally known to kind of want to walk on the side of a hill or a pond dam or something like that. So Spartan, when they design these mowers, they design them in such a way that they track a little bit better. It's a little wider stance, the weight distribution is a little bit different. So that's why this mower just seems a little bit bigger than what the Kubota does. And also the tires. So the rear tires, they're not maybe as obvious as when you look at the front tires. There's a huge difference between the front tires of the Spartan and the tiny little front tires of the Kubota. And the rear tires are also significantly larger, but that's definitely worth noting. So a couple other things when it comes to controls we should probably talk about. So the Kubota, it's a key switch control, really simple. I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm amazed that they don't do that on the Spartan on the cheaper mowers. But you do have the turn knob style deck system. You've got your electric engagement of the clutch. Your park brake is the lever on the left side here. Everything's pretty easy to access. Got your choke, so all that's good. Your throttle. So moving over to the Spartan, everything on the left, of course, is the fuel tank and your fuel gauge. But when it comes to controls, we've got a deck knob here. Like I say, it's got a couple more settings here. You've got your throttle here, your choke here. But we utilize this control panel on every Spartan built. And so the cool things that this control panel does, so it'll tell you obviously how many hours are on the mower. You can set actually a timer to know how long you've been running it. But you also get a tachometer, and I love that. You don't get that on very many mowers, but knowing how fast the engine's turning lets you know obviously how much you're bogging down, but are you running at the maximum RPMs, or do we need to make a little adjustment and get you back up to max? It also has a voltmeter, so you can tell kind of where your battery condition is. And the final, you've also got a wrench button which tells you the maintenance. So when is it time to change the engine oil on the Spartan? And it's resettable, all that's very easy to reset. It's pre-wired for lights or electric deck lift. Obviously this model you can't put electric deck lift on this model, but it's all pre-wired for that, so it's kind of cool. And we also have soft start engagement of our PTO built into that control panel. So we don't just hammer on the clutch, we actually pulse it to kind of spin it up so we don't pull the engine down so much and we don't stress the belt and things like that as much. So that's a pretty cool feature as well. It'll also tell you if any of your safety switches are out of place. And that's one of my favorite things, because if I get a customer calling me and say, my mower won't start, I can kind of help troubleshoot it over the phone. So it's like, do you have any red lights? Well, yeah, I've got the arms or whatever. well, we need to look at that. Well, once we satisfy all that, we get a green light, we're good to go. And like I say, instead of a key, we've got a code that you can customize to whatever you want it to be. So it's definitely theft resistant, and trust me, I know firsthand at our other store when we had a problem with that. They didn't steal any Spartans, but they did take keyed mowers. One other thing, the 12-volt power supply is kind of cool. It's you know, if you want to charge a cell phone, something like that. And I should mention the park brake, where it's on the left side, the lever on the Kubota. We use a twin pedal park brake system on the Spartan. I kind of like it. If you're ever pulling on a trailer, you can set the park brake before you roll back down rather than have to reach over here and do more things at once. So I'm a pretty big fan of that being on the twin pedal system. But I think overall, I don't think the Kubota is a bad mower. I just think you get a lot more with the Spartan for the money. I think warranties are very similar. Spartan is great at standing behind their products, so if you ever did run into issues, they're fantastic at standing behind their products. And I think, oh, and you can customize the heck out of this mower. There are so many accessories and upgrades that you can do, whether it be replace the seat and put a suspension seat on there, you can put the tech packs, you can put lights, you can put assist handles. There's got to be 20 possible accessories that you can install on this mower, and they've designed it that way, right? So you can really kind of deck this thing out, and or maybe it's just the suspension, maybe it's just a better ride that you're looking for. Whereas I don't think you get kind of that customization level with the Kubota. Regardless, I'm Nick Pomeroy with PR Equipment. We'd love to be your Spartan mower dealer. We're here in this Canton area now in our new store, which is, we've got a Wills Point address, but we're right in the middle, just north of 20 on 64. And of course, our main store down in Currens, where we've been selling these Spartan mowers for about 5 years. So come check these out. I honestly think you get more for your money when you go with a Spartan. Thanks.